Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another photo mishmash. This one being broadcast live February 27th, 2019. And as usual, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Steve Skirt. Steve, how are you today?
I'm great.
Good.
It's good to be back here. We have an absolutely beautiful day out here in East Tennessee today. I don't know what the temperature is. 70 degrees right now and sunny.
Whoa!
I'm broadcasting in shorts and flip-flops.
And your spiffy white t-shirt with your McKay photography branding. I like it.
Well, actually, I veered away from the t-shirt thing. That's pretty much live in t-shirts. And David and Allie took a bunch of my shirts, like these safari shirts, with them, I don't know, a couple months back or something. It was, our Smokies tour. And they got them embroidered with this awesome embroidery. And I forgot I had these clothes. And they gave them back to me at PPA. And I hung them in my closet. And I was like, oh, wow, I haven't worn this shirt since Tanzania last March. Let's bust it out.
Nice. Classic safari shirt. I like it.
Yeah.
And I just want to say welcome to the chat room. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon. I hope wherever you're watching from, it's sunny and 72. Here in Seattle, we got gray skies. It's been dry. It's not 70. It's like mid 40s, I think, which I still have this feeling of winter should be bitter cold as it is in Vermont. So every time I step out and it's 40 something here in Seattle, I'm like, woohoo, this is great. So I'm pretty happy. I wouldn't mind a little day of 70 though.
Yeah, this was, I'm not going to say it was unexpected. We've got one of the wettest winters on record out here in East Tennessee. And some of you following the news have probably seen some of the flooding and stuff that's been happening around Tennessee. And it's really bad. There's still roads that are totally flooded out and washed away. And anyway, so we are just so tired of the rain out here. It's almost like we've flipped places here. You're out in Seattle and you've had these sunny summers and hardly any rain. And I moved out here and all of a sudden there's just tons of rain. So anyway, it's just everybody's in a great mood today because the sun is out.
Nice. Yeah.
All coming out of hibernation. But I think it's coming. I think the rain's coming back in a day or two. So.
Oh, man. Yeah, I saw because I'm following Tim Lucas and he's launching his own little YouTube channel and has been posting and seen some of his pictures of this pretty serious flooding. So hope everybody is safe. And to use that as a segue, make sure you're backing up your photos. If your house is washing away, not to make light of that in any way, but you want to make sure you're using backup. And I had an email that went out earlier this week with a good deal and also kind of my backup system that I think is pretty simple and straightforward. Basically, 2 big hard drives and an offsite using Backblaze, which I've been pretty happy with. I think we talked about that on the show last week.
We did, yeah.
Okay,
I think you did a follow-up post too with a link to Backblaze. And I can't believe a week's gone by and I haven't even, researched it, but I do fully intend to because it sounds like a great option.
Yeah, it works well. Denise wrote in though and let me know that, and I didn't know this. You do have to have those external drives plugged in. If you have backed up an external drive via Backblaze and you unplug that drive, 30 days down the road, Backblaze will be like, well, that's not data you need anymore. We're going to delete it. So it's not a back up every drive you have in your house. It's only back up what is currently connected to your system. So that's important to remember and just keep in mind that's how their system works. Okay,
so I've got a Lacy drive that is Thunderbolt connected to my iMac. So Backblaze will back up everything, right? Everything on the iMac and on that drive. Or any other drives that are constantly connected to this machine?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep, that's exactly awesome. Right. Yeah. So good. And we've got the chat room just chiming in with the rest of their weather reports from around the country. We've got in Australia, we've got Florida, we've got Southern California. So looks nice, guys. I'm a little jealous of those warmer temperatures. I was out last night at one of my favorite photo locations flying the drone, and it was chilly last night. It was mid 30s with just enough wind to make your bare hands hurt pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's the wind that kills you. After years of living in Chicago, it could be freezing cold and you could dress warm and feel kind of okay.
Mhm.
But once that wind started ripping around, man, it was a whole different story.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. All right. But now you're a man of the Southern. And well, I'll save this for a minute. We won't get quite to that just yet. A couple of quick updates, though. One, the show is partially brought to you by Squarespace. I say partially because it's also brought to you by you wonderful chat room folks. If you're photo enthusiast members, we love you. Thank you for being a member. But Squarespace also happens to help make this show possible. And if you're looking to build an easy website that doesn't feel cookie cutter, that really kind of just gets out of the way, the building process. I don't want to tell you how much work I've spent trying to fix WordPress issues in the last couple of months. For a while, my photo uploads just broke. And you might say, well, why do you still use WordPress? Well, it has a couple of forms of bits of customization that really work well for what I'm doing. But honestly, it's getting very close to the point where I'd be like, I don't need those anymore. And the headaches and the worries of all of the kind of spam stuff that happens is really pretty frustrating. And Squarespace, you really just don't deal with that. The way their system runs, it's incredibly safe and secure and fast and easy to set up. So if you're looking to build a new website in 2019, check them out. Squarespace.com/photorectv, and you can save 10% purchase. Very reasonable prices. Thank them for their sponsorship. And of course, thank you, chat room, for hanging out with us today. And those of you who are members, thank you. If you're not a member, then you should consider joining photorec.tv/join to learn more about all of the benefits that you get, like new videos each week. I just put out a video at the end of last week about how to make your own presets. Steve, you just put out a video, or sorry, not a video, Tuesday tip on rearranging the develop panel. Tell us a little more.
Yeah, that was, so I had a little bit of writer's block. All of a sudden I'm like, oh, it's my week to do Tuesday tip. What don't we have? And what do I think people are thirsty for? And I always try to think about my workflow and what I'm doing. And so recently Lightroom did an update where you can arrange the panels in your develop module. And I did that right off the bat as soon as that was available to me. And I have loved my workflow now with that, because there's certain panels that I just don't use. I know you put out a great video recently, or a tip on the tone curve. I'd like to probably use that a little bit more, but I just don't. And so I keep it in there, but I can move that down. And things like, it would always drive me nuts when I'd edit a photo and then I'd get down 3 or 4 panels and it says lens correction. I forgot to turn that on. So then, I got to go back and kind of adjust the edits and stuff. So anyway, it was just a Tuesday tip on how to arrange that develop panel. It's going to vary for each person, but I'm just, I thought it was important because a lot of people may not even know that you can do that. And it's really helped out my workflow a lot.
It's such a simple thing, but that's right. You just want to kind of set this up for exactly the way you want to do it. And it's just going to be less clicking around and making yourself more efficient. My video with the kind of the setting up for the presets is similar in a way. If you find yourself often going in and sharpening to a certain amount on some pictures and maybe others sharpening a little bit more, a little bit less, set up a preset that just does that sharpening. Then you don't even have to get down to that panel. You just go left, click it, and boom. Yep. Or the bulk of the video really is about kind of bringing those RAWs in and getting them to be developed in such a way that they end up looking as good as the JPEGs would straight out of the camera. But if you want to work on them more, you can, of course, because they're still RAWs. It's kind of the best of both worlds. So I was convinced I'd already done that video, but I went back and I looked and I was like, no, I've never shown these folks. I've never shown these good folks how to make their own presets.
I'm kind of surprised. I think it's because we talk about presets so often, and when people sign up, they get access to a bunch of presets that you created in the past and stuff like that. So, and you taught me how to make presets, and I do that on import with all of my photos, lens corrections, chromatic aberration, things that I'm going to do 100% of the time.
Exactly.
I have that all applied, and it's definitely those little things. And I mentioned this in the article. It doesn't make that big of a deal if you're just editing a couple photos here and there. But if you come back from a tour or a shoot, or you're doing weddings or real estate or whatever, and you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of photos to go through, every minute does count. So, and screen space counts too. I heard a statistic a couple years ago that you're 40% more efficient working on a large screen in front of you with a lot of screen real estate editing a photo than you are on a laptop.
Yeah.
And so, you know, rearranging those things, creating presets and stuff like that, it all just helps with the process. And you find years later, you've spent a lot less time just navigating around.
Definitely.
Hopefully.
Definitely. And I just, chat room, you're engaged with us often. Make sure you let us know in the community group what future topics you'd see. As you heard from Steve, this happens to me too. We get writer's block or video block from time to time and are like, what should we teach next? And so we love the input from you all. So don't hesitate to reach out and share some thoughts of topics that you'd like to see. I mean, we're small but a growing community, and I think it's really cool that you get to drive the direction of the education at times, and just takes the value of this community, just makes it very valuable is what I'm trying to say. Speaking of valuable, real quick, so I put out that video about the 10 terabytes for $180 on Monday. And then I got the email from B&H today, 10 terabytes for $149. Is that what it came in at?
159.
159. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, and I have Roy's notes right here. I thought it was actually the same drive. I've been corrected. It's not the same drive, but here's the good news. So many of you put that order in. It was out of stock almost instantly. Just cancel it. Order the new one. They're the same, even though for some reason they're slightly different products. They're basically the same. Save yourself another $20. And if you want to put that 20 in an envelope and mail it to Photo Enthusiast Network to join for a couple of months, you could do that.
Man, that is so ridiculous. What's the, I can't see on the graphic that I have in front of me here. What's the retail price on that?
It's $250, $260. So it's, it's a big chunk of change off. Yeah. It still is kind of crazy. Even at 250 that you're getting 10 terabytes. Now this isn't a fast, exciting drive. This is a solid, reliable, but slow backup drive that you plug into your machine and make sure everything that's important to you is backed up on, or you buy two of them and you mirror them. And then of course you also sign up for Backblaze or one of the other online backup systems, which by the way, Pam's in the chat room, Pam Case, and says she's uploading to Backblaze right now. Thank you. Easy peasy. I agree, Pam. And so there's a lot of specials though, not just at B&H. There is the small USB-C 2 terabyte SSD drive on sale. I've been waiting for that to go on sale, and I bought this morning. $299. It's regularly $380, so it dropped $80. And that's going to be my main travel drive for working. And my goal, if you remember back, my goal is to keep my library, this year's library, as small and as lean as possible, deleting pictures. I hope to keep it under 2 terabytes. So that SSD will be my main working drive, both at home and on the road, and it will automatically sync up to my bigger drive, and of course then back up to Backblaze as well. So that's my goal. We'll see if I can keep it under 2 terabytes for the year.
So is it just the 2 terabyte version that is on sale right now?
I believe it is. If you go to photorec.tv/MMH, that stands for Mishmash Highlights. This is put together by Roy. Thank you, Roy. Glad you're feeling better. There are links to all of these products that are on sale with a couple of highlights of some of the better ones. But Amazon's got a huge list of storage products on sale today, including SD cards. You always need a few more SD cards, and so those are on sale as well. These are the reliable SanDisk at the various different price points and speeds that they have. So, and if you, again, community members, if you got any questions about which speed is best for your camera, feel free to pop those into the chat and we can answer them, or just put them into the Facebook group and we'll get to answer them as well. So all of those specials are there. And these are affiliate links. They greatly help what I do here. It is a significant source of my income. Well, not really significant. It is an important part of my income. And so if you're buying through those links, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Even if you don't buy any of that stuff. Let's see. Then we jump into the weekend review. But before we get to that, let's talk about something really current. Now, Steve, I know you're a Southern gentleman now, and so you don't really talk politics, but I want to talk Cohen.
Okay.
I just wanted to see your reaction. That was much more mild. I thought you were going to be like, no, we're not touching that. I've been
No,
watching.
I've been home. I've been isolated at home in my own little. I've been shooting a lot of real estate and stuff, so I have not been very connected to current events, which, to be honest with you, has been great. It feels, I need a couple headlines here and there. I follow a lot of stuff. All the stuff that's suggested to me on Google News never has politics because it just drives me nuts these days.
Yeah.
So it's all, technology and cameras and cars and, shoes and stuff that I'm just into. And I like how it's tailored that way. So I miss a lot of the political stuff. I mean, of course, I know what's going on a little bit with that, but.
Well, I'm not. I don't want to scare anybody. We're actually not going to talk really about Cohen. The Cohen hearing is happening today. He's testifying in front of Congress. I watched some of it for a while this morning. Interesting. Certainly, I have lots of opinions, but this isn't the platform to share those. But what I have been watching for is the press pool photographers that sit right in front of him. And looking at what cameras and gear they're using. And I went and found a picture. CNN's got a couple of pictures, so I'm going to share my screen. And unlike last week, I am going to do my best to not end the show when I'm sharing my screen. We won't talk about that anymore. Okay. So here is a shot of Cohen at his table, and just sitting there in front of him for hours and hours and hours are all of these press photographers. I don't know how well that picture's coming through, but certainly Canon, and then right on this guy's got something weird on the end of his Canon. It looks like a giant filter with kind of gears on it. I don't know what that could be.
Is that a Canon? I mean, I see the white lens, but that whole camera body and stuff just looks very squared off and strange.
I know. I think it is still Canon. And this Canon in the foreground is certainly kind of 1DX, which we have a news story about the 1DX Mark II. Is that right? The Mark II? Mark III, thank you, is going to be tested at the Summer Olympics next summer. So we're about a year away from that, or a year, 18 months, I guess, more accurately. And then on the other side of the Canon, it keeps striking me as some kind of Micro Four Thirds, maybe. I just don't recognize that knob and that switch there. But when I'm watching the live feed, I definitely saw a couple of Sonys, and it made me think there's been a couple of times where audio-wise, the question to Cohen sounded extremely clear. But he said, "Excuse me, say that again." And I just wonder, I mean, that could be a ploy on his part. I don't know. Or I wonder if there's all of these shutters right here. Because, from time to time you see this, and when they kind of let the live audio through, you just hear these shutters just going machine gun style. I saw a couple of Sonys. I'm assuming they're A9s with their completely silent shutter. And one woman I saw had her phone right next to her Sony, and it was connected to a battery bank and all that. And I know that the newest firmware coming allows your phone to act as an FTP server from the Sony. So the Sony will communicate directly to your phone and go to an FTP server somewhere else that your editor can then pull and pop up on CNN instantly. So you take the picture, and 15 seconds later, it can be on CNN's website. It's kind of cool technology. So. That's all. I don't know how many else photographers. I mean, I know some people do this, but when I watch sporting events, I try to count the white lenses versus the black lenses and see if I can spot Micro Four Thirds or Sony events in there. The way that I can easily spot the Sonys is they have white lenses as well, but most of those photographers seem to be using the 70-200. It's on that stop screen, and that has a very distinctive pedal-shaped hood that the Canon 70-200 and Nikon 70-200 do not. And of course, it's white, and those bodies are a little smaller. So I don't know. Chat room, let us know. Do you watch the sidelines at things like Super Bowl and try to count the different lenses?
One of the places that we're probably going with all this, I'd venture to say within 5 years, most of these events like this will probably require a mirrorless silent shutter. Because these major clicks and stuff that go on might be a thing of the past as we kind of venture more into the mirrorless realm. Because you're right, we can hear it, but you can hear in the background just the machine gun barrage of mirror slapping, and you know, that it's interesting to think that that may be something of the past here.
Yep.
Not too distant future.
Yeah, and it is. I totally agree with you, and I do think that that will over the next couple of years it'll get quieter and quieter. And you must feel at some point there'll be that one or two photographer holdouts, and they're just going to get dirty looks as the room is quiet and everybody's got their quiet shutters going, and that guy over there.
You're like those doofuses out in public that are having FaceTime calls without headphones. I'm sorry if I offended anybody, but for crying out loud, if you do that, please stop it.
Were you? Yes. There was the Iceland restaurant where that gentleman was having FaceTime with the family.
I mean, it just happens like a lot nowadays. I've seen people complaining about it and stuff, and you see it on airplanes before they take off and stuff like that. It's just like, just hold it up to your ear and just talk to the person. You know, I don't need to hear both sides. It's like those old, I had one with a company that I used to work for, Nextel. Do you remember those push to talk?
Yes.
Videos that they were a cell phone, but they had push to talk. And as a cell phone, it was total crap, but it was a really good push to talk technology. Those things just, unless you're on a job site, like laying asphalt or something.
Yep. I agree. Let's get back to lenses for a second, though. We did have a new lens announcement from Sony this week. I wasn't able to be at that event, so Kaz covered it for me, and he did a fantastic job. Even if you don't have a Sony, even if you aren't interested in portraiture, which this one of the strengths of this lens, it is the 135 millimeter f1.8 lens. You should watch this video because he really touches on some nice points that you should think about when you're shopping for lenses. Overall, it looks to be a spectacular lens. Very, very nice. You do pay for it, though. And, you know, that's true of many of the Sony lenses still. So $1,800 is the price point. It's a 135, as I said, f1.8. What I heard from some of the photographers at the event, other than Kaz, all are pretty much in agreement that it is a fantastic lens. Paired with something like the A9, which I mentioned a minute ago, which has that really responsive eye tracking. They were using it on guys playing a scrimmage basketball game. It was keeping their eye in focus as they were, you know, basically moving around, dunking the ball. And that's just kind of impressive to think about at that speed and that kind of more, what do you call it, irregular movement, you know, that's not predictable, so to speak, and just pretty impressive. So again, you know, just where this technology is going to be in a couple more years, not just from Sony, but from all the manufacturers, is pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. All right. We have to decide about next week. Maybe we'll do that towards the end of the show. I am headed to Yellowstone National Park tomorrow. It looks to be one of our snowier trips. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because Steve, you and I went last year, and it literally snowed 2 feet over the 2 days that we were there. It was epic.
Crazy. I mean, but it kind of came, and then we had some clearing and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't looked at the forecast, but what has been going on with the snowfall out west and the snowpack and the amount of rain and stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if you're getting a lot of snow the whole time you're there. Now, are you doing the Animals of Montana portion, or
nope? That's happening tomorrow. I'm on my way out tomorrow, and I'm joining them just for the kind of trip down to Yellowstone and Yellowstone portion. Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah. So it should be a pretty spectacular. It is one of my favorite places on Earth, Yellowstone National Park, and in winter, it's just a whole nother level of epicness with just unbelievable unbroken snow scenery. I mean, now that I've been to Antarctica, I've seen, you know, miles and miles of snow and icebergs the size of, you know, Manhattan and things like that. That's pretty awesome. But here in the US, to be able to see this kind of landscape just covered in snow as far as the eye can see, and then all the geothermal stuff that creates the steam that freezes on the plants. It's just a really, really cool trip. I'm excited that we've already announced that we're going back in 2020. So I think there are a few spots left. I know it was selling well after David renegotiated the carriage prices. Carriage. Yeah, like Snow White. We're going to go in on a pumpkin.
Renegotiate the horse and buggy He dropped the price because there's no shuttle anymore. There's no motorized shuttle. It's all horse and buggy.
Horse and buggy, right? Yeah, that was the catch. I knew there was a catch there.
Bring your thick coat. No, such an awesome trip, and this is another one of those tours this year. Now, granted, I've cut back on the amount of tours that I'm doing just in general to give myself more time at home, but there's also certain trips that I've kind of stepped aside to make sure that David Carr, as we brought him on as an instructor, really gets a chance to experience. And Antarctica was one. I know both of us, Toby, are not going to be on the Tanzania tour, but that's going to be an amazing adventure. Anyway, David has never been there in the wintertime, and I'm like, dude, you have to do Yellowstone in the winter. It's absolutely incredible. I've done it a couple of times. One of my all-time favorite domestic tours by far. It's a blast. And we usually cap things off with snowmobiles, which is a lot of fun. Just kind of get away from a day of shooting and just tear up the mountain and stuff. It'll be interesting if you guys do that to see, man, you're just going to see so much snow at those higher elevations.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome out there. So I'm excited about that. Tim says he needs a refund. Tim, I'm so glad you signed up for 2020. That's awesome. Make sure you write David. He'll give you a refund. So we'll get to that. All right, let's dive into, or just this reminder. So we're about to dive into one of my favorite portions of this show. I say everything's my favorite, but I mean that. I love this part of the show where you've submitted pictures. We work on them in Lightroom to give you some tips and tricks. Every time we do this, we hear from you all. Oh, I didn't even know you could do that. Or, oh, I didn't even think to do that. That's why you all submit images to us. We have some images to work with this week. But if you're a if you're a Photo Enthusiast Network member, this is just one avenue you have for getting feedback and kind of critiquing of your images. And we have our monthly image review, which that's just wrapping up, right? Can they still submit for that, Steve? February?
25th was the cutoff. I think today's the 27th. I thought it was the 26th. So it's been done for a couple of days. And just so you guys know, if you submit and it comes in after the 25th, we've just got to honor the rules that we laid out. So we generally just assume that you want to submit that for like March. Let's say it came in today. It's after the cutoff. We would place that in the folder for March. So if that's not what you want, be sure to let us know. But that's just kind of what we end up doing. Sometimes we get a couple of different pictures, and for the competition, you're allowed one. And we've had to go to people and say, well, which one of these would you like to submit? And but yeah, so the cutoff was the 25th, and then probably right after you guys get back from Montana, we'll get that recorded. So it's been a little tricky. I know we talked about this a little bit last week, but the McKays have had a couple just really horrible family emergencies. They're okay, but Allie's sister is just going through the ringer, and they kind of needed to get out to Oklahoma and be with her and help. They've lost a couple people in their family, and it's just been a really, really difficult time. So we're a little bit behind on some of the recordings, like the year end. Our intent was to get everybody together and get that recorded, but then you guys were off to Antarctica, and then it was, okay, we'll do it as soon as you get back from Antarctica, and all this stuff happened. So just bear with us. We really apologize, but hopefully you guys understand, and you keep David and Allie in your thoughts and prayers. They definitely need it.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I would say, I think there's been no complaints that I've seen. Anybody who has any complaints, I don't want to be your friend. No. One of the things that I love about this business is that, we are all friends and here for each other and supportive. And it is a community of folks. And I mean that in the best sense of the word. We also have option one, which is posting in the forum. We've had some really good feedback about that. Some folks wishing that there was a little bit more interactivity there. We're looking at ways to do that. But what I've loved is I've been in there this week and kind of giving feedback. And there's been some really active members giving awesome feedback. And so it's just great to have all of these different avenues where, you've moved this slider, to +80, and you're trying to decide, do you like it or not? And, you know, you ask your significant other who's looking over your shoulder, and sometimes you can trust them, sometimes you can't. And, but to put it in front of other photographers' eyeballs and to say, hey, what do you think? Does this look good to you? And to get some quick feedback like that. I just love what's happening in all of these different avenues that we have for this.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So let's dive in to Lightroom and let's pull up a couple of images here. And again, I won't cancel the broadcast when I'm done. Oh, and I also have to make sure that it's only on. There we go. Okay, so first up we have Nicole has sent in a picture from Old San Juan. Everybody can see this? We're looking good?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Wow.
Well, I can. Wow, that is that's a cool shot. It's so clear too. It looks, even on my screen, it looks super crisp.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Did you submit this as a DNG with where it shows edits and stuff?
It is a JPEG, but what's interesting is when I hit the crop tool, it must have a little XML that came along with it because it knows that it's been cropped a certain amount.
Okay.
So this has been worked. We can't see edits, any edits to it already, but other than the fact that you did some cropping here, Nicole. And I think you did the brilliant cropping. I think really nice. Would I move it up a little bit to get that closer to a third? So I'm looking at a couple of things when I move it up. One, to include all of that cloud. Two, to get rid of this kind of wave down here that's a little bigger and brighter. Now it's out of the crop. And I don't think we're losing anything else by doing that. Steve, any thoughts on that?
Well, so I love the picture. And this is one of those shots where I would love to see another one of her shots with like a zoom lens really focused in on some of the colors of those buildings and cropping out the sky and the ocean and everything else, and just, you know, because there's so much that's going on here. A couple of the things that I would watch out for is in the upper left, you have two things. You have a building that is very large and substantial, and there's so little of it being shown that it's kind of that subplot that starts and ends abruptly. And then the cloud up there, which is really pretty, but it's basically the only cloud in the whole image. And it just kind of peeks in. So I may consider cropping that out just to keep a consistency in the sky. But the other thing is in the lower left corner, there's a wall, and it's a really thick wall, and it's got a similar texture to the structure in the very back, which is obviously the kind of the focal point of where your eye ends up. And it sort of takes away from it because it's so heavy. So I may consider doing more like a 4:5 ratio crop, show a little less ocean, you know, certainly get rid of that. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, at this point, I'm just kind of playing around because I find myself just, it's stretched out horizontally so much that my eyes are constantly darting away from the subject and looking over on the edges. And there's just a couple of things that are kind of distracting me. So there's a lot going on. It is cool. It's really cool the way it was submitted. Just a couple tips to think about.
Yeah. You know, listening to your suggestions, I haven't said this in a while. I often find myself kind of glancing up at the small thumbnail. It really helps. For some reason, bigger or smaller pieces can jump out there. And I agree, this thick wall here and the fact that it's a little bit in the shadows really is noticeable here in the thumbnail. And I do have trouble removing it completely, though, because I think it tells part of the story of kind of the wall around Old San Juan. And in some ways, it does help kind of connect to, you know, the fort up on the horizon. So
I think if you do more of a free form, then you can really define each edge on each of the four
Yeah.
sides.
Yeah, which is something we've talked about, because again, if you're you know, not going to print this for some frame you already own that's an 8x10 or a 16x9 or something, crop whatever you want, and if it's a print that you're really happy with, you can get it custom framed, you can get it custom printed at a size on metal. You have a lot of options there. I think I might just come in and brush just a little bit of shadow brightening on this wall, just to kind of lighten it a little bit and make it a little bit more even. So that's not seeing a whole lot. My flow.
Oh, and kind of a bonus that you find in there is that structure that pops out of the wall right there, kind of where your brush is, and that's so cool. I've missed that.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say, you know, to see more shots with more of a zoom on certain elements within this would be really cool. Of course, you got to get this shot. I mean, it's a great scene. It's beautiful. But then also to just zoom in and isolate certain structures that you may lose when you look at the picture as a whole.
Yeah. So yeah, I just brushed on a little bit of shadow recovery and a little bit of warmth on there too. Where'd it go? There it is. Right on the wall. Auto mask is turned on, so you can see how nicely it stuck to the shadowy edges until I got up into this part and was just messy. And I brought up the warmth too to kind of match. You'll also find shadows in situations like this to be very blue feeling. The other tip, it's one I've been sharing a lot lately, but I think it's worthwhile, in the HSL panel. If you come down here, these buildings, they're beautiful colors. It's a little washed out because this feels like midday sun. So you could come in here with a saturation, click it, click on the color, and you can drag up. Wow, it really, oh, well, sorry, this is a JPEG. But if it was a RAW, it'd be a little bit more selective in its color, but you can just kind of really increase those specific colors by clicking there with the little donut and then dragging up to really make those colors specifically pop.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. And, you know, maybe even on the green, just a little of the grass.
Yeah.
And yeah, people, I always forget, but there's a lot of yellow in grass. You know, it looks green, but it's very yellowish. So that's kind of when you were changing that building, you could see some of the movement in the grass too.
Yeah, and you could certainly shift I'm now moved my donut picker up to the hue section. So picking some of that yellow grass, you can, you know, make this look like a ridiculous golf course. You don't want that. You want some realism still, but you can shift it a little bit in that direction to just kind of really make that green pop. Nice.
But I do have to say that the edits that were made prior to, you know, our suggestions and stuff here that Nicole did was really nice. It was very realistic, not too much salt on the food. If hopefully she's heard that analogy before. I know many of you have. So it's a cool picture, and she did a nice job processing it.
Yep, very nice. Now Timmy has submitted an image that he took on our Antarctica trip, and I'm pretty sure I remember where this was, and it was neat. Because I didn't capture this, and I was jealous of everybody who did when I saw these pictures later, because this was one of the very few locations where we had a bunch of green with that backdrop of epic glaciers and mountains and snow. For most of what we saw, it was all ice and rock and some penguin shit, excuse my language. But here, which is very reddish colored, by the way, because they eat a lot of krill, which are reddish orange. But here at this spot, this is cool. This is very cool.
Yeah. So that's all lichen, right?
It's I think it's some mosses, and actually there may be some grass in there as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. You know, there's not much of that in Antarctica. There's no dirt, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as suggestions, well, first of all, the editing, I assume he's done some editing, looks really nice. There's a pretty good hint of blue in the snow in the background. That some of that is nice to see. I may tone it down just slightly. I think cropping wise, you could tell a stronger story though. I would freeform crop. I'd come up from the bottom just above that snowy patch on the left-hand side. And then maybe in on the left just a little bit. I'm looking at the top left. You can see there's kind of a wall of snow right up there. That
You want to go past that?
no, just kind of have that end at the side of the frame, and maybe where you are right now is fine. And then on the right side, I'd come in just beyond that that little piece that you see on the right. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of squared it off, so you can really play around with different ratios and stuff. But I just think now you don't have that little patch of snow that was in the foreground that ended abruptly over on the left-hand side. It just didn't need to be there. I mean, this is just much more intentional of the contrast between the green and the rock, and then the snow in the background. You're not bringing any of that snow to the foreground.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. I like it. I'm gonna show a chip. Yeah, I agree. I think the blue in the glacier and snow is fine, but again, there just feels like this rocks here are a little bit more blue than I like, and so I'm going to show this chick. I've got the gradient tool. I'm going to pull down a gradient over all of that fairly quickly, and I want to warm it. Let's turn O off so you can see what's happening. You see I'm warming it. Just hang with me for a second. Shadows, actually, I want that rock to be even a little bit darker. And so, and a little bit less saturation. Now, I don't want that to apply to any of the snow, just the rock. I could have brushed it on, but I'm going to use the Range Max Luminance to say, just apply that to the darker patches. And now we click this and look how quickly, boom, it picked those exact locations without brushing, without auto masking. All I did was I brought this down, and now I've been using that tool often, and I'm pretty happy with it. You can kind of see down there at the bottom right here. So you do want to watch a little bit, and you can still use a brush within the graduated filter as well to edit that a little bit more. But I think your crop is fantastic, Steve. I really, I think that does make a stronger image. And really my only other edit was to make those rocks a little less blue and a little crispier and darker.
Yeah, and actually, now that I'm looking at it, I'd come in a little bit more on that left-hand side and just crop out that rock that's in the lower left. Use that. What I'm looking at is that bright green area in the foreground. That's going to be your leading line that takes you, kind of over the foreground and into the background. And yeah. There you go.
So the reoccurring theme here that Steve is working through is this idea of being really mindful of what's coming and going in your corners, and helping people kind of start there. Corners are very strong, making sure there's nothing distracting, pulling them away. It was the same idea back with Nicole's picture, and now same with Tim's. Nice.
Yeah.
I love that we just two very different pictures in a row, old San Juan pool and then straight down to Antarctica. I love going on little trips with these pictures. And then Kevin Walk has submitted this old farm truck, and I saw you post this, I think in the group or maybe just on your Facebook this week, Kevin, and right away I thought, hey, nice shot, Kevin. I love your kind of thoughtful composition, thinking about rule of thirds. That truck just kind of hanging out there on the right-hand side.
Yeah, this is compositionally, he did an outstanding job, and I like the way it's processed. I personally think that this would look really cool as a black and white, because it's got that old-timey feel to it with the truck, and there's just a lot of different colors going on. So I want to just focus on the truck and kind of the setting that the truck is in. But I kept getting pulled away from that because of the green and the flowers in the field, and then the different colors in the sky and stuff. So I personally think that I would process this as a black and white. Also, it was taken at maybe a little harsher time of day. The sun is pretty high in the sky. You can tell by the shadow on that truck. Yeah. The sun is kind of up at about 2 o'clock, and the shadow is relatively short, so that means the sun is up there pretty high. So a lot of times I'm thinking about black and white when I'm shooting at that time of day. The other thing that would require a lot more work, but if you have the patience, like if you're going to put this on your wall or something like that, and you really want to spend some time, I would pull this into Photoshop and I'd work on getting that bush that's right dead center in the foreground out of there. That's, you know, that's going to take effort. It's going to take time. It's tricky and everything, but that would definitely make the image stronger.
Yeah, I agree, because this dark bush intersects that whiter dirt or brighter dirt. It definitely is a little distracting and pulls you off to the left. Now, this is one of those things where, you know, I talk about this on the workshops, kind of pre-shopping. If you were at this location and this bush, you know, was a weed, it seems like a weed. If it's not important to the farm, maybe they wouldn't mind if you removed it, or, you know, pushed it down. Find a little rock to like temporarily push down on it. Now, please don't do this in national parks. Don't do this on people's properties without asking. But, you know, you may have been able to kind of make that bush less conspicuous before you even took the picture.
That was my thought exactly. I'm like, how exactly do I tell people, you know, if you're shooting this, just go up there and remove it?
Now, Kevin, I know you've done some editing. It does seem like there's a little bit of halo or glow I'm seeing over these bushes here, these trees in the distance. Just kind of keep an eye out for that. And then we have just, I'm not sure, some farm bits back here. Maybe they're beehives or something, but they are different than everything else in the picture except for the truck. And so they kind of keep grabbing my eye. So, you know, we could do a quick hide in Lightroom, but that's something else to look at. And also even a little power line, I think, is back there. Little minor things, but overall, really nice. I also hope you took some kind of close-up pictures, because there's some great textures here. As well.
That truck is just totally cool. Hey, I know this is Lightroom tips, but do you have Nik filters on that machine?
You know, I don't think I have installed them since I last. Oh yeah, I do. What would you like me to do?
Go into Silver Effects Pro 2.
Let's let it edit the original. See how fast my machine is.
I was just messing around with this over the weekend. I shot a couple homes, and one of the places as a cover shot, we're tying in this old community, and so I antiqued a photograph that. You know, you got to be careful. It can get you into trouble looking really corny and stuff. But they had a filter that I thought was just kind of fun. And
can it not take a PSD?
Oh no, it should, because I always access it from Photoshop, and I've had my files converted to PSD when I take them into Photoshop.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. It wouldn't take that original PSD, but when I said edit a copy. Okay, here we go. Now,
go to vintage in the top left, right under classic. And it's hard for me to tell on my screen, but somewhere down there, they've even included a virtual matte, but it's this like really antique looking one. It's below. Oh, there it is with the big white vignette.
Antique
there you
plate.
Go. Click that. And then you can go in and adjust that vignette. I always bash white vignetting, but you know, when it comes to something like this, that may not be the filter that I was thinking of, because there's one that they actually place. Oh, is this an old version of Nik?
Yes, it is. I haven't updated this in a while. I'm not sure what version I'm on.
Well, my point in doing all this is you can play with the grain. You can play with, I mean, Silver Effects is so awesome for processing black and whites. There's so many different ways to go. And the suggestions that they give you are just a starting point, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I would, if you have this, I'd kind of play around with it. And then the other thing that Nik provides that's outstanding is their Define tool for cleaning up noise.
Yes.
And, you know, anyway, I was looking at this picture, and once you go black and white, you get that old timey look to it. It kind of reminded me of some of the things available to you here that are just kind of fun. But again, all of this is to say, you know, just kind of use it sparingly.
That's pretty cool. I forget about Silver Effects. I went to them often. I should really, the only Nick filter that I really used with any frequency was Silver Effects. I was pretty happy with some of those black and whites when I felt like I was struggling in Lightroom. I find under the color or the profile browser now, some of these black and whites I really like. And so when I'm struggling now, I'll typically will go to one of these, but I should remember to make sure I go to Silver Effects from time to time, because they really do have nice starting points.
Yeah, and
but
things that you just said that I want to cue in on is, you said if I'm struggling, I go to this, and it's kind of like you can look through it for some inspiration. Now, I would encourage people to kind of find something that they like, and then try and alter the photo using your own sliders and stuff, so you can really fine tune it. You know, because then that way you're learning how to process. If that's a look that you like and you want to do more photos that way, you're learning how to do it. Yeah. I'm just not a big presets guy, I guess. But Nick has some pretty cool stuff. I just thought I should bring that up.
Yep. Yep. No, thanks. There's a great reminder. Kate saying she loves Nick. It's a lot of fun, and loves Define, which is the noise remover as well. And so definitely should play with those. I don't know the current pricing off the top of my head. I know they had a deal. They've been passed around a bunch.
I had a really old version, and I just picked up the latest one from DxO. Mine was back when they belonged to even, I think, before Google. They went bankrupt and stuff. And anyway, I got it on a Black Friday special, and I think it was, I don't know, $30 or something. It was nice. So ridiculously cheap. I think it's like $60.
Yep, exactly. It's sitting at $60 right now. It looks like for another day and a half, it's sitting at $60, 15% off. So if you're interested, you should check that out.
And if $60 is kind of, that stings, and I get it. Like, I would just wait, keep an eye on it, keep checking back, because they hold specials sometimes. I still think it's a value at $60, but I didn't buy it. Once it hit 30, I was like, well, heck yeah, might as well. Yep. And I've enjoyed the updated version is really good.
Nice. We should compare notes sometimes and see. I'm wondering what I'm missing. I'm feeling a little jealous now.
I don't know. Once you kind of dove in there, it didn't look like you're missing a whole lot.
Okay. That's what I'm going to tell myself. All right. Budget cuts right now around here. It's budget cuts. All right. As I say, as I just bought a 2 terabyte SSD this morning. Yeah. And I really want, I need to send you, well, you're going to poo-poo it, but there's a smartwatch I have my eye on, but you're not going to like the design. So.
Yeah, it's I mentioned smartwatches in my Tuesday tip a couple weeks back, and I'm obsessed with the functionality of my Apple Watch now. I finally dove. I'm an Apple fanboy. I always get like new Apple stuff, but I've held back on that in the last few years. And the watch was just, I wasn't interested in it at all. But now that I've gotten really into the health benefits and what it does and stuff, I love it. I still don't like the look of it. It's my opinion. It's just kind of too techy looking for me. I like big classic watches, but I'm a believer in smartwatches now. They're pretty awesome.
Yeah, same way. I wasn't even a watch guy, and then as I started running more, I was like, well, I need something that tells me how far I've gone. I mean, I don't actually, but I wanted something that tells me how far I've gone, and I picked up the Amazfit Bip. $80. You can still get them. I lost mine, and there was a couple of things it didn't do that I want a better one that does do. But for just general running or tracking your steps or notifications, I was really impressed with this. Now, it is a little quirky, and you have to have kind of this third-party software to talk to your phone, both I think it's mostly just for Android, but I think it talks to iOS stuff too. So if you're looking, and I very quickly grew to really like the gadget because it was always just with you, and it made things, it wasn't something else to remember. You just had it on your person.
Yeah.
And I like that. But now I think I want a little bit more of a dedicated running and hiking smartwatch. So I got my eye on one. We'll see.
There's a couple people who wanted to here, I'll show this on, I don't know how much you guys can see on camera, but this is the Nike version. So it's got some little holes in the band. And, this, I wanted the white band Renee thought that that just looked ridiculous, so we went with the black version. But I am going to get my white band soon, because the thing with the watch is it's a very intimate piece of technology. Like you said, you always have it with you, and you're constantly looking at it. I mean, I'm tapping and interacting with this thing far more. It's actually cut my screen time down considerably on my cell phone and my iPad and stuff like that. And there's just enough writing that you can do to get back to people, but you're not like writing a novel or anything. So yeah, I don't mean to downplay it. It's an awesome piece of technology. I'm really, really happy that I got it. But I just happen to like more classic, big, chunky, you know, heirloom sort of watches. And this one's not that, but I will say that it's helping me get a lot healthier than I was. So
yeah, there's definite market research to, or not just research to back that up. Yeah. All right, let's get back to photography gear though. And Sigma has announced 11 L mount. You all know what L mount is? Well, that's for those new Panasonic full frame. And they're coming up with an MC21 adapter that will allow most Sigma lenses to be used on this camera. And also probably mini Canon lenses will work fine too, although they don't specifically publish that list, but they should, just like their MC11 adapter that I have that allows me to use Canon and Sigma lenses on my Sony. It's very similar. Mini Canon lenses work just fine, even though they don't publish that data. So this is great. This is a bigger field of full frame mirrorless cameras that are out there and available to us. I have to say, this SL1 that's coming, and there's like 2 versions of it. It's expensive. And it's certainly focused more on the video side of things. I mean, it's going to be a good, solid photo camera, but I think it's got a bit of a hard road ahead of it, even with an adapter like this and just 11 lenses. Again, when you look at where Sony has come so far, so fast with so many lenses, and of course, Canon and Nikon with huge amounts of lenses. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But it's neat to see another option out on the field. And then we've got this new update from Ricoh. They have the Theta Z1. This is their 360 camera. It shoots 4K video. It takes 23 megapixel photos. And of course, they're 360 all the way around you. $1,000. I mean, in some ways, you could say that part of this is the future. I don't think 360 cameras are going away. It's not a fad. But it certainly isn't going to be replacing everything else. And I asked chat, when's the last time you saw a 360 picture that just kind of blew you away or was really cool? It just doesn't feel like a thing right now that many people are doing to any great degree.
So, and it's funny to say this because I shoot so much real estate, but
oh well, yeah.
The thing with 360 cameras to me, as an artist, is there's nothing artistic about it. Like, you're just capturing what's around you. And yeah, I mean, maybe the ability, I don't really know, maybe the ability is to shoot that raw. You can go in and edit it and stuff like that, and that's fine. But you're not dealing with composition. You're not using the edges of the photograph to create a story. And that, to me, as a photographer and as an artist, is pretty paramount when I'm looking through the lens on how I want to tell a story. I'm taking a slice of what I see, and maybe it's a big scene, or maybe it's just a really tight portion. 360 camera is just like, hold it up there, shoot everything that's around you, spray it out to the world, and say, hey, look where I am. I don't know. I just don't have any interest in them. I mean, like you, I don't think they're going away. But I can't tell you the last time I've looked at one and been like, dude, that's a sweet 360 photo.
Yeah.
It's just documenting something. There's no artistic value to it, in my opinion.
And I mean, there is value to documenting things. The one video I have from the safari a couple of years ago where I took it on the hot air balloon ride, and it's out on the end of a selfie stick, which in the way many of these 360 cameras do. They just somehow the selfie stick disappears. So you have this viewpoint out in space, and you can look in all direction. You can look at the balloon. You can look down at the ground. You see the hippos going by. That's pretty cool. The quality is so, and it fails to kind of share properly on Facebook, it seems, and I don't even know where it is anymore. I shuttled it off somewhere because I was like, well, it keeps not sharing right. So that part of the equation is still difficult. The way we kind of consume that information, and the whole idea. And Tony Northrup, I think, has talked about this a lot. Even Casey Neistat, I think, to some degree, he's experimented with this kind of 360 stuff. YouTube does support it. You made this point. Where do you want the viewer to be looking currently? You know, they might be staring at my goofy face in the hot air balloon when really they should be looking down and seeing that pod of hippos down below. So there's definitely some issues with it still.
Now, I do think that a 360 camera application in like a GoPro sort of scenario, using GoPro as more of an adjective than a product, is really cool. But then the artistic value is on what the athlete is doing. So you get this awesome view of, you know, like that Red Bull Rampage downhill event on mountain bikes. I think is one of the, I love watching the GoPro videos of that, or, you know, stuff like that, or the skiers and everything. Now, I mean, in those types of applications, it's awesome. I see tons of value in it and stuff. But the art is now in the athlete or the person that is experiencing this type of thing that I probably would never be able to do in my lifetime. But as far as just creating, you know, interesting photographs and stuff, I don't know. I just I wouldn't pay $200 for one, let alone 1,000.
Yeah. Kevin makes the point. It's good for bands. That's an interesting thought. You put it up on stage. You can decide who you're looking at. That's interesting.
Because then you get the contrast of like you're on stage with just a few people, and then you see this giant, you know, sea of an audience. Something like that could be cool.
And I know they are. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say some of the views like DJI is now doing with their drones with that Earth view or whatever they call it.
The small planet.
Yeah, I mean, taking it to that kind of level, I think looks kind of neat too, because it's a different perspective. Go ahead. Sorry to cut you off.
I just say I think they're working on technology that says here's where you should be looking right now, and you know, it can steer in some cases and allows you to do that. But we're still just a ways away, and again, I just don't think they're quite there yet. But let's move on. Actually, before we leave gear behind, and again, all of these stories we're talking about and many more that we're not have all been collected by Roy. Thank you, Roy. Photorec.tv/MMH to see links to more of these stories. I wanted to pull up Lindsay Adler. She is a Canon Explorer of Light. I think she's officially a Canon Explorer of Light, and a unbelievably fantastic portrait photographer. She recently posted kind of her gear list, and somebody who's at the top of their game, you know, might think top of their game of portrait might really have like tons of portrait focused lenses and all kinds of stuff like that. And she doesn't really. She's got a pretty minimal, straightforward kit. Here it is. Let me see if I make it a little bit bigger for you. It is the 5D Mark IV. And there's the 85, that's the 1.2. So that's definitely a very nice portrait lens. And then, then the 24-105 f4, and the other lens is what, the 70-200. Wait, that's black though. That's the 70-200. What's this? The one
f4 2.8 70-200. It looks like the 2.8. Actually.
Yeah. Okay, so on the camera is the 70-200 f2.8 Mark II. Not even the Mark III. And then that other one that I was just struggling over is her 180 macro.
I didn't even know they made a 180 macro.
Yeah.
With the 100.
So, I thought this was refreshing. Yeah. Again, there is a couple pretty expensive lenses here, but it's not a huge kit. There's not a ton of lenses. And this is what she's making some fantastic work with. And maybe if you don't know her, I should show some of her other work here. Just really fantastic. Now, what isn't shown is kind of her lighting setup. And for her, it's all about the light. And so there's a lot of working with light, you know, off-camera light and different powerful light. I saw a presentation, I think it was Bambi Cantrell for years ago. She shot many portraits. She worked for Playboy for a long period of time. She used the Canon 51.8, but here's the thing: she's not shooting at 1.8 where that lens is kind of softish, because it's what, the nifty 50. It's $150 or something like that. She's shooting at f8, you know, in these portrait situations. So you don't need, and that's the same thing with the 24 to 105. It's not the sharpest lens in the bag. But when you're shooting at f5.6, f6.3 with plenty of light, it is perfectly acceptable. It's even more than that. It's fine. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Brian's mentioning Adler's Creative Live courses are awesome. Kate says she gives awesome live seminaries. Seminaries? Seminary?
Seminary?
What's that? I know what you mean, Kate. I don't know why I'm struggling with that word, but it's like seminars. Yeah, seminar. Yeah, she is. She's very good. I can't remember where I saw her not too long ago. Oh, well, she was at the, that's right. She was at the Canon event when they launched the EOS R in Hawaii, and she gave a little seminar there, and she's very good. So I got to see her in action. Got to have breakfast with her too, but I didn't really talk to her. I was a little starstruck. All right. This picture. Did you check this out, Steve? This photo.
Well, I know what you're going to show. Not only did I check it out, I was the one that shared it to our Pen membership.
Oh.
Came through on my Hasselblad.
Where is the, yeah, because he is shooting with a Hasselblad, isn't he? So this is, Kevin, you'll like this too if you haven't already seen it. This Lamborghini being disassembled and exploded. So there's a couple of things that I like about this article. One is that it's this photographer, where's his name here? Fabian Onfer. He's got this kind of series of exploding objects. And I like that idea of coming up with a project that works for you and kind of sticking with it, you know, through, you know, various iterations. And that was actually 5 years ago. But all of those photos were created using detailed small scale models. And this is using an actual $2 million Lamborghini. I mean, that's basically what they show. And here's some detail shots. How he did it was individually, these products were all photographed at various places around the world and then digitally put together. But just the detail, the light, the crispness to this, it's just awesome.
Yeah, this was so, I spent a long time just gazing through this article. Like, I read through it, and you know, it took him 2 years, and like you said, he went to many places around the world, and he did it over the course of the restoration that was going on. So as a piece would come off, you know, he'd spend a bunch of time photographing it. He'd watch the video. It's really cool. He kind of would hang something and have this backdrop and shoot it and stuff. And you think of all the thousands and thousands of pieces. I mean, because some of the shrapnel that you see in the picture, they're like just individual bolts and stuff. And it's phenomenal. This kind of thing to me is just totally cool.
Yeah. Really, really cool. So this article is linked. You can watch as a short video that talks a little bit more, just 1:44, talks a little bit more about it, but you can see the amount of planning and detail that went into this project. Just really, really cool. Nice.
Yeah.
Fun. All right, Steve, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
If you could be remembered for just one photo that you've taken, can you pick that photo? Do you know which one it would be?
Man,
no.
You can't just spur that on somebody.
Hey, it's in the show notes. It's in the show notes.
How did I miss that? I must have blacked out. Wow, that's yeah, I don't know. One photo, huh?
Yeah. And so this is an F-Stoppers article. It's the concept of a one-image portfolio. That's pretty hard to imagine, isn't it? But if you had only one photo that you could display that kind of represented you and your work, which best represents you as a photographer?
Actually, it would be, some of you have seen this picture, but my photo reconciliation that I did for my father this past Christmas,
Uh-huh.
at this point in my life embodies, and I told him this in a letter that accompanied the photograph, it kind of just embodies my most passionate piece of work to date. And I don't know in a competition if it would even do anything. I don't really care. It just it was a scene where I was with my father at the beach, and he and I we get along great. We've always been very, very close, but honestly, there's been seasons of our life where we haven't been so close, and there's been struggles and difficulties. And it was a time when he and I were hanging out together. I had started my photography business, and I mirrored it and I brought it together, and we were looking at talking about how to shoot this pier. Anyway, I named it Reconciliation because it was a moment when I felt like our lives were kind of reconciling. So I won't go too far down that rabbit trail, but that is definitely probably the one photograph that I would show as an embodiment of what I like to do right now as a photographer.
Yeah, I just, you have not posted that on your Instagram, have you?
Not on Instagram.
Okay.
It's a very wide format shot, so it's not going to post well on Instagram. I posted it to Facebook. And then what I did is I actually ordered through Bay Photo. He lives 10 minutes away from the old Bay Photo that I used to shop at in high school. I ordered a big metal print of it. It's like, I don't know, 50 inches wide or something. And he went down and picked it up. And then there was a letter that went with it and stuff. And it's funny because I think I mentioned it on the show, but he, proud father, he hasn't even hung it on his wall, I don't think. Maybe he has by now, but he would just leave it in the back of his car and he'd take it out and like show all his friends when he'd go to lunch with his buddies and stuff. But that's
cool.
It meant a lot. It meant a lot to him, but it meant a lot to me.
That's really cool. You post enough and you get tagged enough that I'm scrolling too far back and I still haven't found it on here. It's a beautiful shot. And, from the standpoint of like this discussion of like a portfolio piece that kind of represents you, I think that works as well because it has some architectural lines in there. They're incredibly thoughtfully, laid out and straight and perfect, which is, speaks to a lot of your work with interior and architecture as well.
It's my hometown, I grew up by the ocean. It's, so there's a lot of layers to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about you?
It's a great question. It's hard to kind of get beyond a currency. There is the picture just over a year ago of the woman in Vietnam holding the picture that I just taken of her. I really love the kind of the humanity of that. And on trips when I travel internationally, I love to be able to connect to people. I don't always feel like I do on that level, but that was just a really neat thing. And if there was one thing that I was going to kind of be remembered for, I'd be happy if it was that picture. I think that's just a very nice.
You had a couple meaningful. You also got one like the following day of the woman carrying the water up from the river, or she was like watering.
Yeah.
The lighting was really beautiful.
Yeah,
but I remember that one that you got in that little village, and that was way cool.
Yeah. So that's the easy answer. But I think we struggle with this some. We're very lucky to get to travel all over and go everything from, cityscapes to amazing landscapes and our body of work. And you do real estate photography as well, Steve. So, our body of work is pretty diverse, and to find a single image that represents us well is tricky. I'd love to know, chat room. I'd love to know if you have a picture you've posted on Instagram and you tag it. What can we tag it? Like pen my one image. That's a little bit of a long hashtag. PEN my one image. I just want to see what
to see that. That's such a great question. And I would absolutely love to see what people share that they consider to be an embodiment of their work as a photographer. Not necessarily the best photograph or anything like that, just the one that probably means the most to you that you'd want to be remembered for.
Yeah. And I just threw pen on there to make this, you know, a little bit more of a specific hashtag. If you're not a photo enthusiast member and you're watching this, I don't care. Post that one picture. I'm just really curious. Steve and I will be looking at them over the next couple of days, and you know, where we can or when we can, we'll add a comment here or there. So I just put it in the chat. Roy's going to make a post in the group as well. So yeah, it's a neat idea. But take the idea, you know, relax it a little bit. And I like what it's saying, and that is be incredibly selective with your work, especially if you are putting together a portfolio that shows people what you do, and you're looking for business, or you just want people to see your work. Don't give them more, just give them less. Really, you know, a couple of pictures in various categories or a little bit more than that, and I think you're going to be very well off. Yeah, that's my advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Great advice.
All right, I think we're going to move into this part of the show where I say photos from space of racetracks. Check this out. So this photographer.
Oh, I saw this headline, but I hadn't seen it. I'm glad you included this.
This is pretty cool. I saw this come across my feed earlier this week. This astronaut, he is a what do you call him? Motorhead? Is that accurate? He loves following racing, car racing, Formula One, Grand Prix, NASCAR. And when he was stationed on the space station, he made it his hobby to photograph all of these different tracks from space.
Did this guy just pass up Han Solo and Indiana Jones as the coolest dude ever?
I don't, maybe.
He's an astronaut taking photographs of racetracks. I mean, come on.
I would be more, the 12-year-old boy in me would be even happier if he had like a little Matchbox racetrack up there in the International Space Station. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. His gear for this, we've looked at the gear closet, let's closet in quotes, on the space station before. It's a bunch of really nice Nikon gear. He was using the 800 millimeter lens with a 2x converter, giving him a 1600 millimeter focal length.
So now, is that the camera that you see in the photograph of him? Is that 800 on an extender?
Is it which picture is that?
That one in the spacesuit where he's holding the camera in front of him?
No.
Okay, because I was going to say, geez, man, what kind of 800 lens is that?
Yeah, no. So he did this all from inside. They have that little kind of bubble habitat with a beautiful down-facing. Can you say down? You know, space people correct me, but Earth-facing portal. And what he would do is he'd give the coordinates to ground control, and they would be like, okay, the space station, you know, on February 27th at 2 a.m. is going to pass over that. And he'd make sure he arranged his schedule so he'd have a little bit of time. Cannot see these with the naked eye when you're just looking out of that portal, but you would put that 1600 millimeters focal length on, and you would get it. He said he missed sometimes because he just, you know, again, I can't quite imagine this, bringing the camera up to the eye and photographing something you can't see, but then through the viewfinder you can, but still I have to imagine pretty tricky. And the space station is 250 miles above the ground and is going at 17,500 miles per hour. So, you know, that's a little tricky. And then they have just this nice gallery. I liked it because it wasn't just kind of circular NASCAR tracks here in the US, which is what I think of. But we have some really cool French Grand Prix and Detroit IndyCar. I actually didn't even know this was a thing, but I guess that's a bigger track around there on that island. And the Bahrain, just some really cool tracks. And, you know, I just thought it was a neat project, just a little bit different.
Okay, so far the French Indy track is the coolest, but that's no surprise.
Yeah, well, the Malaysian MotoGP is pretty cool too.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Are the banks painted white? Is that what's happening here?
Looks like it.
Huh, yeah. So pretty cool, and they do have Texas Motor Speedway, and yeah. So if you want to look at those in more detail, you can find them at Petapixel, the astronaut who shot racetracks from space. I don't know, Steve, if you went into space, what would be your photographic hobby?
360-degree camera. I just constantly showing people, hey, look where I am, and you're not.
Yeah, just selfies. It'd be a project of selfies.
I'd become a huge selfie fan if I was up in space.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey man, we're gonna start to see these. You know, we just had the Virgin Atlantic just did another test flight. We are just a couple of years away from fairly regular commercial flights into space. You're gonna get a lot of selfies of people's hair.
Lance, the dude from NSYNC, he's gonna be one of the first people up there.
Really? I didn't know that.
Is it
Lance Bass?
Yeah, I was going to say Lance Bass, but for some reason that didn't sound right. Yeah, it made news a long time ago that he had put in a $250,000 deposit for a reservation on SpaceX or whatever.
All right.
He also tried to buy the Brady Bunch home recently and lost out to, I don't know, like HGTV or something.
Now I'm getting more insight into exactly what is in your news feed.
Yeah,
a bunch of Lance Bass articles. All right, Steve.
Yeah, I'm a fanboy of Lance Bass.
Hey, just a reminder, chat room, if you're watching, give this show a quick thumbs up. It's always nice to see and get that feedback. And let's dive in now to the Q&A section. We're going to start to wrap this up. We've got 2 questions. Some of you had questions about the SD cards as I was posting. Roy was answering those so very nicely. I was keeping an eye on them. I agree with all of your answers, Roy. Caleb's got a question. He's finally got a macro lens. Any recommendations on a lighting setup for a macro?
Oh.
Steve, I like LED lights for macro because it's so real time, less experimentation, in my opinion. Because you're working at such crazy close distances, the light power often doesn't, well, I shouldn't say it doesn't need to be very high, because many times you're at apertures of like f9, f10, f11 to get the depth of field you want, or maybe you're stacking. But LED lights, I think, are really nice because in real time, you can see how your subject is lit and how much light you have, and they're often very adjustable. So those $40, $50, or $100 small LED panels, I think, can be really helpful because, again, they don't need to be super powerful because you can put them so darn close to your subject.
Yeah, and he's asking continuous, and that's yes.
Yeah, continuous lights. So that's what I would look at. Now, there are the really cheap ring LEDs. Polaroid makes one, and a couple other. I haven't seen any of those that I love, but a little LED panel, and then you just get what are the slightly larger index card sizes? Get one on the other side to act as a bounce card. It's just so cool how such small things can be really helpful when you're doing macro work. So that bounces the light back on the other side and evens it out. I think Kyle had answered his question earlier on. I just saw a little bit. And said that he uses a little softbox, which is great with a light, because then you get very even light, and I like that. When you're working very close distances with a flash, it's hard to get it right.
Yeah.
And Dane wants to know if I can briefly review the switches on the side of my Sony lens. Have I done a video on this? I think I did a video that I may have never released because it was just a little too informal, but I definitely did a write-up for Penn, for Photo Enthusiast Network. You're talking about the switches on the side of the lens. Some of you might be like, well, they're pretty straightforward. Well, we get this question all the time on workshops of what exactly these lenses do. I'll run down really quickly on this lens, and it's pretty similar on Mini. I've got a switch that lets me switch between autofocus and manual focus. A lot of lenses, though, are full-time manual focus, which means even if it's in autofocus, you can still turn this dial to adjust it. Some aren't, some are. Next is, and I'm actually not sure how well you can see even the writing. Oh, it's out of focus too. I pull it back here. It's still hard to see. Next is a little switch that says full, and then it has an infinity symbol to 3 meters. This lets you switch, and many telephoto lenses have this, many macro lenses have this as well. This lets you tell the lens and the camera what area you want it to focus through if it loses focus. So if you have it full, it'll focus from its nearest distance to its farthest distance when it's trying to find your subject. And that's great. If you're constantly focusing on things further away, nothing ever close, well, you can limit it. This is a focus limiter, and say only focus starting 3 meters away to infinity. Why would you ever want that? Well, it speeds up a little bit of the focus. It doesn't have to search over the entire range. It can kind of concentrate on the farther part of the range. The problem
Great for wildlife.
Yeah. Yeah. The problem I find with it, though, it's helpful in speed, but I forget all the time. And so then I'll see like, ooh, a butterfly right there. And I'd be like, why can't it focus? Well, because I have the switch set to further away. So just have to keep that in mind. Then I've got an optical steady shot on or off. And below that, I have a mode switch. I just have 1 and 2 on this. 1 is your standard. It tries to stabilize as best it can. 2, it stabilizes up and down movements, but it'll allow you to pan more smoothly. Sometimes you'll have an optical stabilization switch that gives you 3 modes. 1 is the one I just described, always kind of working to stabilize in all direction. 2 is up and down, but not left and right to give you smooth. And 3, for mini lenses, this is a little bit of generalization, but for mini lenses, it is it will only stabilize the second you're taking a picture. So that saves a little bit of battery life. I don't like it though, because I love, as soon as a half press, it stabilizes so that it helps me get focus on my subject. It helps me see my subject better. So I'd sacrifice battery life for better usability, in my opinion. There they are.
Yeah, and when it was sitting on the other side there, you could also see this big knob and stuff, and that's just for the tripod ring, which is currently sitting up. You loosen that, and then you can spin that around to put it underneath, so you can mount it on a tripod. You could probably even remove it. I know a lot of those collars you can.
Yeah.
So just in case you had a question about.
Yep, good point. And there is a dial here that says smooth or tight. That changes how easy it is to zoom. And it also you can see creep as I wiggle it, it works its way out. If I put it on tight, it locks it in place and it's less likely lens creep, that's called. But it takes a little bit more muscle, a little bit more like a step above Lance Bass muscle to push that out that way. That's all I got.
Right on.
All right. I think we're wrapped up. I'm flying back from Yellowstone on Wednesday next week.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah, I won't be home until like 6 p.m. We could do a late show, or we could talk about a Thursday show.
6 p.m. your time?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
bedtime for old Stevie.
That's 9 o'clock here. And,
yeah, it's a little late.
Yeah, I'll be 3 sheets to the wind at 9 o'clock. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, we'll need to. I mean, maybe we could do Thursday or something.
Yeah,
I'm pretty good next week, but that's a little late. So
understandable. Yeah, so let's plan on a Thursday show. So we'll do that. Yeah. Okay, everybody. Steve, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Chat room, thank you. If you're watching this,
I want to reward those that have stuck with us. Renee is out of town again at a meeting, so I'm on puppy duty, but it's been a while since I've updated everyone.
Oh, I really thought you were going to do a Lance Bass dance for us. But this is good, too.
No,
this is good.
I showed you Ollie last week after we went off air, but say hi to Ollie.
Ollie.
Growing up. She's getting a little older.
Oh, look at that little face. Oh, she's looking right into my soul. She wants to give me puppy kisses. I can tell. I can tell.
Yeah, right. She is. She's just an absolute sweetheart.
Thumbs up for Ollie. Thanks for sharing her.
Yeah, I saw somebody made a comment about that last week, and I realized I haven't shown her since we first got her. And she's just a little princess. We absolutely are.
Oh, she's so sleepy. She did a big yawn.
She was kind of taking a little nap. Come here, baby.
All right. Thanks for sharing, Steve. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Yep. All right. Thanks, everybody, so much. Have a wonderful Wednesday evening, afternoon, or wherever it is, whatever it is when you're watching this. Thanks for watching. And we'll be back next week, probably on Thursday. Bye-bye.
See ya.